Hello, sweet friends. Welcome back to the book annotation series on my channel. In these videos, I start a brand new book on page 1 and I read and annotate in real time on camera and give explanations and descriptions and details on what I am underlining, what I'm highlighting, what I'm writing in the brackets, all of my various annotation techniques so that it can give you an idea or some new tips and tricks into annotating your own books. And if you're brand new, I would recommend starting with my original video, Annotating 101. This video has all the gold nuggets you need to get started into annotating. It is a beginner's guide. It is step by step. It tells you exactly what you should look out for to annotate, how to annotate it, supplies you don't need to use, and supplies that are good. I give some examples of good books to start with. There's all sorts of goodies in that video. If you are brand new, I would definitely recommend starting with that video. But in this series, I jump right into the book and we kind of explain and talk about the details of my system as I go. As always, this is my system that I have found that works for me. I do this series so that it can give you guys an idea and different tips, but we will all have our different approaches and you should evolve and grow your annotation practice over time like I've learned to do. It will definitely take on different looks and personalities, and that's the best part of annotation. It doesn't have to follow one strict set of rules, and you can make it your own and you can change it at any point. Mine has gone through a number of different variations and that's the fun part of it. So as always, like I said, look into that Annotating 101 video. If this is the first video of mine that you are clicking on into the series, start there and then watch your way through these live annotation series. But for today, we're going to jump right into the book I'm annotating. The book that I'm going to be annotating today is The Wishing Game by Meg Shaffer. I have 3 annotation supplies here in front of me. I have one set of sticky tabs in a matching color to the cover. I have one highlighter from Mr. Pen in the color light purple. And then one fine point pen. This is the Sharpie S Gel in 0.38. It has a super fine nib for writing in the margins and in between sentences. What I will typically do is turn to the title page, and here this is where I keep my key, where I denote what tab is representing what theme or what I'm annotating in the book. And if you've watched a couple of these videos now, you know that I have pretty much the same system for all of my books. It's just the easiest process that I have found for myself over the years. It helps me flip from book to book without relearning my annotation key. And this has taken a few years for me to get down to. And again, this is something that I have found that personally works for me, just to have the same color tabs representing the same theme throughout all of my books. And depending on the type of book will depend on what tabs I use more. So of course, like in a romance book, there'll be more of the love tabs. And in a fantasy book, you'll have more of the plot tabs. But I like to keep the colors pretty consistent. At least for now, that's the system that has been working for me. So what I will do is use a pink or red tab to denote something romantic or sweet. In this case, this is not a romance story, so I will just put the pink tab as sweet or endearing. I will use a yellow tab to show quotes. So any quotes that I love and highlight or underline that I want to refer back to. I will use a green tab for any plot or story related elements. This is plot, story development. I will use a blue tab for any sad or emotional moments. And then lastly, I have a purple tab for any sort of character traits, anything to do with a personal character arc or a journey that the character is specifically going through. So I'll put character traits. And these are the 5 annotation themes and subjects that I have realized that I enjoy annotating over the years, the ones that I enjoy referring back to and have enjoyed, reading through my book. So you may have different categories. You will figure that out over time. What is the reference points that you enjoy looking back to over the years? I know people have all sorts of systems, sometimes more complex, sometimes more simple, as, I like this or I don't like this. And I've seen people use really complex systems with themes and symbolism, and it really kind of depends on what it is that you enjoy writing in books and what it is that you enjoy reacting to. And these are the 5 categories that I've realized that I enjoy reacting to and referencing and writing in the margins. This book is dedicated to Charlie and to all of us who are still looking for our golden ticket. Love that. Sometimes I'll just add a few doodles for a little bit of extra whimsy. It's not necessary, but I do enjoy book dedications every now and again. This one came with a fun map, Clock Island, and it gives you all the different places that each time references. It's a specific place. Interesting. Prologue. May. Every night, Hugo went for a walk on the 5 o'clock beach, but tonight was the first time in 5 years his wandering feet spelled out an SOS in the sand. He traced the letters carefully, drawing them large enough that they could be seen from space. Not that it mattered. The tide would wash the 5 clean by dawn. It had been a bit of whimsy on Jack's part naming it the 5 o'clock beach. Destiny, Jack said of finding this little patch of Atlantic forest 20-odd years ago. These 90 acres right off the coast of southern Maine formed a perfect circle. Jack Masterson, who'd created Clock Island on paper and in imaginations, could now build it in real life. I feel like that might be an important note about the setting of this book because we got that map on the very first page. So I think I'm going to underline that and perhaps put also a plot tab because it sounds like so much of the book is centered around Clock Island. It's important, at least for me, to know where this came from and the history and background of it. So I'm just going to add a little tab here. And with what I do with tabs, because I like my tabs all in a row, I don't like them sticking out at random points, is I will stick it out how much I want first and then press it down this way so that I can make sure to have that consistency of where all the tabs are lining up. In his living room, Jack kept a clock with the numbers marked by pictures of places on the island. The lighthouse at the 12, the beach at the 5, the guest house at the 7, the wishing well at the 8, which led to conversations like, "Where are you going?" 5 o'clock. "When will you be back?" "By the lighthouse." What an absolutely charming notion that is. And that's what I'm going to write here in the margin. And you'll notice that I use the bracketing system a lot when I don't necessarily want to highlight or underline any specific part of a dialogue or a paragraph, but I'm just referencing that whole interaction as one whole piece rather than calling anything out. That way I can just look at my note of what I'm reacting to, but not necessarily a singular sentence that is standing out at me. So here I'm just going to write my reaction, which is, "What a charming notion." I love that. If only we could all live our lives with a little bit more whimsy. Places were times, times were places, confusing at first, then charming. Hugo found it neither confusing nor charming anymore. One could go mad living in a house like that. Maybe that's what happened to Jack. Or maybe that's what happened to Hugo. SOS. Save our sanity. The sand was so cold on his naked feet it felt wet. What day was it? May 14th? May 15th? He couldn't say for sure, but he knew summer would be here soon, his 5th summer on Clock Island. Maybe he thought 1 summer too many, or was it 5 summers too many? Interesting. So it seems like there's 2 main characters we have at play here. We have Jack, who is the one that's living a little bit more whimsically, that came up with the concept of Clock Island. And then we have Hugo, and we don't know their relationship yet. So there's no reason for me to use the character tab just yet because we don't really have many details that have been defined yet. Hugo reminded himself he was just 34 years old, which meant if he was doing his maths correctly, unlike as painters weren't known for their math skills, he'd spent almost 15% of his life on an island playing bloody nanny to a grown man. That makes me chuckle, the word math. So I'm married to an English guy, and in the beginning of our relationship, it was so interesting to hear the word maths because here in the States, we always say math, but as it correctly should be, it is maths because the word is mathematics. And so if you shorten it, it should be maths, but yeah, that always makes me chuckle because that was quite an interesting point in our early relationship, going back and forth on what it should be. Could he leave? He'd been dreaming of leaving for years, but only the way a teenager dreams of running away from home. It was different now. Now he was making plans, or at least making plans to make plans. How relatable is that? Like making plans to make plans. How often do we get stuck in the loop of we're not quite at the step of doing the actual plan and making it, but we gear up in our minds and work up the mental courage to decide that we're going to make a plan. So that is very relatable. I'm just going to write that here in the margin. Very relatable. And you'll notice for me, at least with how I annotate and what I enjoy about annotating, is that I write a lot of my reactions. It's not necessarily that I'm picking out literary prose or any of those types of like actual academic approaches. It's really for me the experience of enjoying a book on a deeper level, and it's a very personal experience. So I like to write reactions that for me are related to something in my life or something that I can connect to or that I've seen before. So you'll notice that a lot of my reactions are very specific to something that speaks to me, which is what I enjoy so much about annotating, that it is such a personal experience. And you'll notice I'm not going to be adding a tab here. It's not necessarily something that I want to reference back to when I read or flip through this in the future. It's just something I'm enjoying as I'm reading. So I can underline it and make a note here, but I don't necessarily need a tab because it's not significant for me to reference it exactly in the future. Where would he even go? Back to London? His mom was there, but she was finally starting over. New husband, new stepdaughters, new happiness, or something like it. He didn't want to be in the way. All right, Amsterdam? No, he'd never get any work done there. Rome? Same story. Manhattan then? Brooklyn? Or 5 miles away in Portland so he could keep an eye on Jack from a close but healthy distance? Could Hugo do it? Could he abandon his old friend here with no one left to help him tell 1 hour from the next, the lighthouse from the guest house? Oh, so it seems like they are old friends, and Hugo has been on this island with Jack for 5 years, kind of helping him out and helping to take care of him. So I guess they have 2 separate roles. One is a caretaker and one is of somebody who needs that help. So I think here I might actually use the character tab. So I'm going to use this purple character tab because this is the beginning of seeing their relationship and what they mean to each other. I feel like that will be significant if these are the 2 kind of main characters in the book. It might be important to reference kind of their backstory and some of the struggles that Hugo is dealing with abandoning his friend, like he says. If only the old man would start writing again, pick up a pen, a pencil, a typewriter, a stick to write in the sand, anything. Hugo would even take dictation if Jack asked him to, and he had offered. Please, for the love of God, Charles Dickens and Ray Bradbury, he'd said to Jack as recently as yesterday, write something, anything. Wasting talent like yours is like burning a pile of money in front of a poorhouse. It's cruel and it stinks. How interesting to describe it like that. And you know, that's so, I always wonder like about artists or musicians or actors or anyone with like that type of great skill or talent. It's almost like the world expects you to share it. You're almost like forced to share it in a way, especially if the world has gotten a glimpse of it. It's almost like people expect that of you without taking into consideration maybe your own desires about your talent, because I can imagine, you know, you can have burnout and you can feel overwhelmed and not want to do it anymore. But it's almost like when you have a great talent that the world enjoys, you almost have to selflessly give up your wishes about that talent and, you know, give it to the world. That's interesting. So I'm going to highlight it because for me in my system, as you will see in that Annotating 101 video, I like to use my highlighter for highlighting direct quotes. Now, there will be occasions where if I use a double technique, I will highlight and underline something if it's super significant to me. But in most cases, I typically use a highlighter for quotes. If you want more details, as always, refer back to that Annotating 101 video for more explanation. So here I'm going to highlight wasting talent like yours is like burning a pile of money in front of a poor house. And the note I'm going to make here is it's like you owe the world your talent rather than having possession, than having your own view and desires of it. Almost like it's not yours anymore. It's like a shared talent that you need to owe the world. Interesting. They were the very words Jack had thrown into his face years ago, back when Hugo was the one drinking his talent to death. Interesting. So it seems like their friendship has gone through quite a few things and they've both been there for each other, which I think is really kind of sweet. So I'm just going to put a little doodle here. I think that's so beautiful to find a friendship where you can show up for each other like that through the years, especially in the hardest of times. I always say, you know, relationships are built in the trenches because anybody can be there for a good time, but it's really when you are struggling and the people that show up that are the ones that really matter and are the true relationships in your life. So how beautiful. They were just as sharp and true now as they were then. Millions of children out there, and former children too, would weep with joy if Jack Masterson ever published a new book about Clock Island and the mysterious mastermind who lived in the shadows and granted wishes to brave children. Jack's publisher regularly sent boxes of fan mail to the house, thousands of children urging Jack to write again. So he's an author. SOS, those letters begged, save our stories. But Jack had done nothing for 5 years but futz around in his garden, read a few pages of a book, take a long nap, drink too much wine at dinner, and fall into his nightmares by the time the little hand was on the 9 o'clock dock. So interesting. I mean, who hasn't gone through a phase like this where you just want to kind of hole up and be away from the world and just focus on your own healing and focus on listening to your own thoughts? I mean, this is so deeply relatable. So deeply relatable. In fact, I am kind of personally in one of those phases right now in my life where I just want to water my own garden, just be focused on my own little world and kind of shut out the world, and whatever form that takes for you. You know, it's a beautiful thing to be able to surrender to that and kind of just shut everybody else out. Something had to change soon. At dinner tonight, Jack hadn't made it to the bottom of his wine bottle as usual. He'd been quieter, which was either a good sign or a very bad one. And no bitter riddles either, not even Jack's favorite. 2 men on an island, and both blamed the water for the loss of a wife and the death of a daughter. But neither ever married, and neither's a father. What is the secret of the girls and the water? Oh, it's a little eerie. Too much to hope that Jack was coming out of it, finally. Hugo strode across the sand to the edge of the tide. He let the waves creep up close to his toes, but no further. He and the ocean weren't on speaking terms anymore. Was this eccentric? Yes, but that was fine. He was a painter. He was supposed to be eccentric. Once he'd loved the ocean, loved seeing it every morning, every night, seeing all its facets, all its faces. I think I'm going to stop there and maybe just underline this part here, which is he and the ocean weren't on speaking terms anymore. It sounds like something really tragic happened, and it's interesting that this poem kind of refers to some tragedy, and so I wonder if those two things are linked. So that's interesting. I'm going to maybe put a plotline tab here just because maybe there's some foreshadowing, and later if something does get revealed, it'll be interesting to refer back to this to see if it was in fact some foreshadowing. Not many people knew what the sea looked like in all seasons under all phases of the moon, but he did. Now he knew the ocean was as dangerous as a sleeping volcano. At peace, it was magnificent, but when it wanted to, it could bring down kingdoms. Isn't that so true? What a picture that paints. At peace, it was magnificent, but when it wanted to, it could bring down kingdoms. Interesting. 5 years ago, it had brought down the small, strange kingdom of Clock Island. And 5 years ago was when Hugo had actually moved to Clock Island to be with Jack. So clearly something very big happened with the ocean, with Clock Island, with these two friends that have been through a lot together. So very interesting with laying the setting here and with what's about to come in the story. Jack might believe in wishing, or he had once upon a time. But Hugo didn't. Hard work and dumb luck got him to where he was, nothing else. Isn't that just so sad that as we grow up, we do kind of lose a lot of the magic and the whimsy that children have, just that innocent way of looking at the world. It's just, I guess it's like a rite of passage to adulting. It kind of takes some of that away from you. And I'm a big proponent of, supporting your inner child and finding ways to add in back, elements of magic. So I just think this is kind of sad. So that's what I'm going to write to say, kind of sad. How life and adulting can take your magic, can take your magic. And I'm going to put a little blue tab for just signifying that this whole section is just kind of sad and melancholy. It's talking about, his love for the ocean, and he once had a really great connection to it, but again, seems like something really tragic happened, and then it kind of helped these two friends lose some of that magic and whimsy. But tonight, Hugo wished and wished hard that something would shake Jack from his apathy, break the spell, give him a reason to write again. Any reason, love, money, spite, something to do besides slowly drowning himself in overpriced Cabernet. Hugo turned his back on the water. He found his shoes and dusted the sand from them. When he came to Clock Island, he'd swore to himself he'd stay 1 or 2 months. Then he said he'd stay until Jack was back on his feet. 5 years later, and here he still was. No, no more. Time's up. Time to go. By this time next spring, he'd be gone. He couldn't sit and watch his old friend fade like ink on old paper until no one could read the writing anymore. Oh, that's really sad, but actually quite a beautiful way to describe that. Isn't that just one of also the greatest tragedies, is like wanting something for someone so desperately, so badly, but they don't want it for themselves. I've been through a few situations like that in my life, and nothing is, more tragic than having to sit by and watch someone fade away like that. But you can't really help someone who can't help themselves. So that is what I'm going to write here. You can't help someone who can't help themselves. It's really sad. Especially if he has such a great talent and, you know, was once such a thriving person. His decision made, Hugo started for the path. Just then, he saw a light come on in a window, the window of Jack's writing factory. The writing factory that only the housekeeper had set foot inside for years, and today was her day off. The light in that window was low and golden, Jack's desk lamp. Jack was sitting at his desk for the first time in years. Was the mastermind putting pen to paper again? Hugo waited for the light to go out, proof it was a mistake, a whim. Jack looking for a lost letter or misplaced book. The light stayed on. It was too much to hope for, and yet Hugo hoped for it with all his heart and wished for it on every star in the night sky. He wished and hoped and prayed for it. Prayed for the oldest miracle in the book, a dead man coming back to life. Who doesn't love a comeback story? Who doesn't love a comeback story? All right, old man, Hugo said to the light in the window of the house on Clock Island. It's about bloody time. Wow, that is quite the prologue. These books I've been annotating recently have really taken me by surprise. I did not expect to have this much going on so early on. And what I typically do is at the end of a chapter, I will put an open bracket here and a closed bracket and just fill in with some of my thoughts or reactions to that chapter or a specific moment. And you know, I don't really have anything specific that I'm reacting to. I've reacted to it as I've gone on and nothing I really want to say, except I'm just going to write, what a beautiful start. So fascinated already. And I think what I'm most excited about is it seems like there's some magical elements, and I haven't read about, you know, any magic stories in a while or magic systems. And so I'm really excited to see how that is all going to play out, but with that emotional connection and that emotional tie. So I'm really excited about how this is going to go. And I also read a lot of middle grade from time to time. And so, you know, that's me kind of loving on my inner child. I love reading middle grade books, and this is giving very kind of middle grade essence. And I love that. So that's just what I'm going to write here. It's like, what if a beautiful start? So fascinated already, giving middle grade magic vibes. Magic vibes, excited. Put a little doodle there. Feeling very in the doodle mood today. So yeah, that was a lovely prologue. I'm excited to read a bit more. Part 1, Make a Wish. Astrid woke from a deep and dreamless sleep. What had woken her? Her cat jumping on the bed? No, Vince Peraldi was sound asleep, curled up in his basket on the rug. Sometimes the wind woke Astrid up when it rattled the roof of their old house, but the tree branches were quiet outside her window. No wind tonight. Although she was scared, she got out of bed and went to the window. Maybe a bird had tapped on the glass? Astrid gasped as the room was flooded with white light, like a car's headlights, but 1,000 times stronger and brighter. Then it was gone. Is that what had woken her, that blast of light in her room? Where had it come from, she wondered. Astrid grabbed her binoculars hanging off her bedpost. She knelt at the window, binoculars pressed to her eyes, and gazed across the water to where a lonesome island lay like a sleeping turtle in the cold ocean. What a lovely description that is, quite illustrated. So I'm only going to underline that portion of the sentence. You don't always necessarily have to underline the whole thing if the whole thing didn't appeal to you. So I'm only underlining gazed across the water to where a lonesome island lay like a sleeping turtle in the cold ocean. The light flashed again. It had come from the lighthouse on the island. But Astrid whispered to the window, "That lighthouse has been dark forever." What did it mean? The answer came as suddenly to her as the light in her window. Quietly as she could, she left her bedroom and slipped into the room across the hall. Max, her 9-year-old brother, was sleeping so hard he was drooling on his pillow. Ugh, gross. Boys. Astrid poked Max in the shoulder, then did it again. It took 12 shoulder pokes to get him to wake up. Goodness, I would love that type of sleep, just to be completely passed out from the world. What? He opened his eyes, wiping away the drool with his pajama sleeve. Max, it's the mastermind. That got his attention. He sat straight up in bed. What about him? She smiled in the dark. He's come back to Clock Island. From The House on Clock Island, Book 1 by Jack Masterson, 1990. Wow, I kind of wish this was a real book series. It sounds so fun, exactly like the type of middle grade series that I would have eaten up as a child and that I probably would still enjoy even at my age right now. I wish these books were actually real. You'll notice I did not have much to annotate, and that's okay. You may go pages and pages without having anything to say. You can notice little subtle things or enjoy parts of it, but not necessarily, having something to write or react to. Sometimes it's just an enjoyment as part of the reading experience, but maybe not anything specific to refer back to in the future. So we will leave this alone. Chapter 1, 1 year later. The school bell rang at 2:30, and the usual stampede of little feet followed. Lucy took backpack duty and lunchbox duty, while Miss Teresa, the class's teacher, called out her usual warnings. Backpacks and lunchboxes and papers. If you forget anything, I'm not bringing it home to you, and neither is Miss Lucy. Some of the children listened. Some ignored her. Thankfully, this was kindergarten, so the stakes were pretty low. Several of the kids hugged her on their way out the door. Lucy always relished these quick squishes, as they called them. How cute. They made the long, draining days of being a teacher's aide, refereeing playground fights, cleaning up after potty accidents, tying and retying 1,000 shoelaces, and drying 1,000 tears worth the endless work. Honestly, teachers just do not get enough credit. When the classroom finally emptied, Lucy slumped in her chair. Luckily, she was off bus duty today, so she had a few minutes to recover. Teresa surveyed the damage with a garbage bag in hand. All the round tables were covered in bits of construction paper, glue bottles left open and leaking, fat pencils and fuzzy pipe cleaners were littered all over the floor. This sounds a little bit like our current home right now. We have 2 little ones at home, and this is often the case. It's like the rapture, Teresa said with a wave of her hands. Poof, they're gone. And we're left behind again, Lucy said. What did we do wrong? Something, obviously, because she was, at that very moment, prying a wad of gum off the bottom of the table for the 2nd time that week. Here, give me the garbage bag. That's my job. Lucy took the bag and dropped the gum into it. You sure you don't mind cleaning up alone? Teresa asked. Lucy waved her hand to shoo her away. Teresa looked as exhausted as Lucy felt, and the poor woman still had a school committee meeting today. Anyone who thought teaching was easy had obviously never tried it. Isn't that the absolute truth? And exactly what I was just saying. I don't think we give teachers enough credit. They definitely don't get the recognition monetary-wise, and they certainly don't also get enough recognition in the world for exactly how important their jobs are for everything that they put up with. So thank you, teachers. Don't worry about it, Lucy said. Christopher likes to help. I love when the kids are still young enough that you can trick them into doing chores because they think they're playing. Teresa dug her purse out of the bottom desk drawer. I told Rosa she couldn't mop the kitchen because that was for grown-ups, and she literally pouted until I let her do it. Oh my goodness. So relatable for me right now with my little ones. You can get them to do anything. If you make it a grown-up thing that's out of touch for them, they will literally run to do it. Is that what being a mother is? Lucy asked, pulling a long con on your kids. Pretty much, Teresa said. I'll see you in the morning. Tell Christopher hello. Teresa left and Lucy glanced around at the classroom. It looked as if it had been hit by a rainbow-colored tornado. Lucy walked around every table with a trash bag in hand, scooping up sticky paper apples and sticky paper oranges, sticky paper grapes, and sticky paper lemons. When she finished the cleanup, she had glue all over her hands, a paper strawberry stuck to her khaki slacks, and a crick in her neck from bending over the short tables for half an hour. She needed a long 10,000-degree shower and a glass of white wine. Isn't that most days, honestly? Lucy, why do you have a banana in your hair? She turned around and saw a slight, wide-eyed, black-haired boy standing in the doorway staring at her. She reached up and felt paper. Good thing she's been practicing self-control for a couple of years as a teacher's aide, or she would have let loose a string of creative expletives. Instead, and with as much dignity as she had remaining, she peeled the paper banana out of her hair. The question is, Christopher, why don't you have a banana in your hair? She tried not to think about how long the banana had been stuck there. All the cool kids are doing it. Oh, he said, rolling his hazel eyes, I guess I'm not cool. She stuck the banana gently onto the top of his head. His dark hair had just enough of a wave that it always looked as if he'd been hanging upside down for a few hours. Voila, now you're cool. He shook off the banana and slapped it onto his worn blue backpack. He ran his hands through his hair, not to settle it down, but to refluff it. She loved this weird kid of hers. Sort of hers. Someday hers. Oh, interesting. So I guess she's hoping he'll be hers, maybe like in an adoption or foster system or something interesting. So we're not quite sure yet exactly the connection between the two, but clearly she feels some sort of attachment and wants him to be hers. That's interesting. Maybe we will put a plot tab there because these are some good important background details about her connection to this kid. See, I'm not cool, he said. Lucy pulled out one of the tiny chairs and sat down, then pulled out a second one for Christopher. He sat with a tired groan. R2, I think you're cool. Sock hunt. She grabbed his ankles and put his feet on her knees for her daily archaeological excavation into his shoes to dig out his socks. Did he have weirdly skinny ankles or unusually slippery socks? You don't count, Christopher said. Teachers have to think all kids are cool. Yes, but I'm the coolest teacher's aide, so I know these things. She gave each sock one final tug up his leg. You aren't. Christopher dropped his feet onto the floor and clutched his blue backpack to his stomach like a pillow. I'm not. Who beat me? I'll fight her in the parking lot. Mrs. McKean, she throws pizza parties every month, but they say you're the prettiest. Oh, that's exciting, she said, though she didn't flatter herself. She was the youngest teacher's aide, and that's about all she had going for her. She was, at best, average in every other way. Shoulder-length brown hair, wide brown eyes that always got her carded, and a wardrobe that hadn't been updated in years. New clothes required money. I'd better get a certificate that says that on award day. You have any homework? Lucy stood up and started cleaning again, wiping down the tables and chairs with Lysol. She hoped the answer was no. He didn't get much attention from his busy foster parents, and she tried to make up for what he didn't get at home. So, okay, interesting. I guess he is in the foster system, sort of. He has foster parents, but he's not really being attended to, it seems like. And so I guess she wants to step in and be a better foster parent, maybe, or actually adopt him or something. We'll see. Not a lot. He threw his backpack onto the table. Poor thing, he looked so tired. He had dark circles under his eyes and his shoulders drooped with exhaustion. A 7-year-old child shouldn't have eyes like a world-weary detective working a particularly grisly murder case. Oh, that's quite a haunting description. And what a burden to bear at just 7 years old, to have the weight of the world on your shoulders. I'm gonna write how sad to feel the weight of the world on your shoulders at such a young age. She stood in front of him, cleaning bottle dangling from a finger, arms crossed. You okay, kiddo? You sleep any last night? He shrugged. Bad dreams. Lucy sat back down next to him. He laid his head on the table. She laid her head on the table and met his eyes. They were pink around the edges, like he'd been trying not to cry all day. You want to tell me what you dreamed about? She asked. She kept her voice low, soft and low and gentle. Kids with hard lives deserve gentle words. Oh my goodness, yes they do. Kids with hard lives deserved gentle words. If only everybody thought this way. Honestly, how much further would the world be if everybody did think that way? And because that kind of hits, you know, a little emotional chord, I'm actually going to highlight it as well. I think it's an important thing to note. And like I mentioned, you know, sometimes I will use a double technique. So I reserve highlighting usually for direct quotes. But in this case, I really liked this and I wanted to underline it as well as highlighting it so that when I'm flipping through, it kind of stands out a little extra. Some people like to talk about how resilient kids are, but these were people who'd forgotten how hard everything hit you when you were a kid. Lucy still had bruises on her own heart from the knocks she'd gotten in childhood. Oh my goodness. Yes, yes. This one resonates a lot with me because not only is it a universal feeling, we have so many things linger from childhood that appear in the most interesting of ways in adulthood. And honestly, for me, this rings so true. I mean, I feel like I have my own bruises on my own heart from all the things I went through in childhood, and those things never leave you. I mean, those are such formative years and they really shape who you are as an adult, what you go through, how you approach things. And I don't know if we ever truly get over these things or just learn to live with them differently, but that's a beautiful way to describe it. And so this time, I think I'm actually going to use a quotes tab. So this is the yellow quotes tab, because I think that's just such a beautiful way to express it. Even though it is a sad sentiment, I still think it's quite beautiful. So I'm going to put it a little lower here so I don't cover up that other annotation I just made at the top. And I put a quotes tab because this sounds like something that I will probably want to refer to in the future when describing to somebody exactly what this feels like, because I do understand that feeling. Christopher rested his chin on his chest. Same thing. Same thing meant the ringing phone, the hallway, the door open, his parents on the bed, seemingly sound asleep, but with their eyes wide open. If Lucy could have taken his bad dreams into her own brain, she would have done it to give him a good night's sleep. She put her hand on his small back and patted it. His shoulders were thin and delicate as moth wings. I still have bad dreams too sometimes, she said. I know how you feel. Did you tell Mrs. Bailey? She told me not to wake her up unless it's an emergency, he said, you know, with the babies. I see, Lucy said. She didn't like that. She appreciated that Christopher's foster mother was taking care of 2 sick babies. Still, somebody had to take care of him too. You know, I meant it when I said you can call me if you can't sleep. I'll read to you over the phone. I wanted to call you, he said, but you know. I know, she said. Christopher was terrified of phones and she didn't really blame him. That's okay. Maybe I can find an old tape recorder and record myself reading you a story and you can play it next time you have trouble sleeping. That's so sweet. He smiled. It was a small smile, but the best things came in the smallest packages. Don't they just? I love that. That is very, very true. I'm doodling a little bit more in this annotation than I have otherwise. Again, I think because this book has like middle grade magic essence and it sounds like there's a lot of whimsy in it, I feel like the doodles are appropriate, and I'm just feeling a little bit of that fun doodle energy this time. So that's why you're seeing a few more. You want to take a nap, she said. I'll put down a mat for you. Nah. You want to read? He shrugged again. You want to, she paused, tried to think of anything that would distract him from his dreams. Help me wrap a present? That got his attention. He sat straight up and grinned. Did you sell a scarf? $30, she said. Yarn cost me $6. Do the math. 22? 24. Good job. Can I see it? He asked. Let me get it out and we'll wrap it and write a letter. Lucy went to the desk where she and Teresa locked up their purses and keys every day. Inside a plastic grocery bag was Lucy's latest creation, a spiderweb weave scarf knitted in a soft, silky pink and cream yarn. She carried the bag over to the table and pulled it out, modeling it for Christopher like a feather boa wrapped around her shoulders. Like it? It's girly, he said, shaking his head side to side as if weighing its merit. A girl made it and a girl bought it, Lucy said, and I'll have you know, back in the 19th century, pink was considered a boy's color and blue was considered a girl's color. That's weird. Lucy pointed at him. You're weird. You're weird, he countered. Lucy lightly tapped him over the top of the head with the end of the scarf and he laughed. Go get our letterhead, she said. We have to write our thank you note. Christopher ran for the supply closet. He loved the supply closet. That's where all the fun stuff was hidden. The new packages of construction paper, the bags of pipe cleaners, the glitter, the markers, the pens and colored pencils, the Halloween decorations. There was also some nice stationery donated by the mother of one of last year's kids who owned a local office supply store. Lucy had claimed the sky blue paper with white clouds for their company. Oh my goodness, that is like my literal dream supply closet or like annotation or stationery drawers or any of that stuff is like some of my favorite things. They bring me so much joy. If you've been here for a little while, you know that I share a lot about my cozy hobbies and all the stationery and everything. And even as a child, I used to just love the supplies closet. So I'm just gonna write, love the supplies closet. Pure joy. Big fan. Can I write it while you wrap it? Christopher asked, running back to the table with the paper in hand. You want to write the letter? She asked, as she carefully ran the lint brush over the scarf. She sold about 1 or 2 scarves a week on Etsy. To most people, the extra $30 or $40 a week wasn't worth the time it took to knit a 4-needle scarf, but for Lucy, every penny of that money mattered. I've been practicing letters, Christopher said. I wrote a whole page last night. Who did you write a letter to? She asked as she folded the scarf neatly into quarters and wrapped it in a sheet of white tissue paper. Nobody, he said. Who's nobody? She asked. A new friend? I just wrote nobody, he said. Okay. Lucy didn't push him, especially because she had a very good idea who he'd written his letter to. More than once, she'd caught him writing notes to his parents. I miss you, Mommy. I wish you were at my school picnic today. Lots of moms came today. Dad, today I got a star on my homework. Oh my goodness, my entire freaking heart. That's so sad. Oh my goodness. Oh my God, how precious. But how sad. Oh, that has my entire heartstrings pulling. I'm going to add a little blue tab here because that's just so sad. Just picturing this sweet, innocent little boy just trying to talk to his parents who are no longer there. Little letters, heartbreaking notes. She tried to talk to him about it, but he never wanted to admit to writing to his parents. It embarrassed him. He understood they were dead and probably thought other kids would laugh at him if they knew he still talked to them sometimes. Ugh, that's just the worst. I feel like it starts at such a young age that we learn to suppress our feelings. We don't do anything out of the norm. We don't feel comfortable sharing anything that is emotional. I feel like that emotional suppression just should not happen at such a young age, especially in formative years when we're learning about our emotions and how to deal with them and process them. I mean, this is probably why we're all anxious now. And that's exactly what I'm going to write here. It starts so early with emotional suppression. I don't even know if that's how you spell the word, but hey ho. this is probably why we are all anxious in our society, honestly. It starts so young. I'm going to put another blue tab here because this type of stuff is really important to me. I talk a lot on my channel about small joys and living in the moment, living in your truth, you know, accepting your emotions, leaning into them, feeling what you need to feel. And it's like a reoccurring theme that I try to, you know, help others with, especially through journaling and spreading my messages of journaling and stuff, because, you know, it's exactly to avoid this, not teaching our children and the next generation to hide these feelings out of shame or embarrassment or whatever it might be. These are real human emotions and experiences. And, you know, the more we teach at a young age to suppress them, then the more anxious, depressed adults we get who then have to go out into the world and the society and deal with all the things that life has to give them, and they don't necessarily have the right tools. So yeah, I'm just going to denote that with a little sad marker. Christopher squared the cloud paper in front of him on the table and got out his pencil. "What's the scarf lady's name?" he asked. The kid was smart enough to already know how to change the subject. "Carrie Washburn. She lives in Detroit, Michigan." "Where's that?" Lucy went over to the map of the United States on the wall. A blue star marked where they were: Redwood Elementary School in Redwood Valley, California. She pointed her finger at the blue star and then ran it halfway across the map and stopped near Lake Erie. "Wow, that's far," Christopher said. "I wouldn't want to walk there," she said. "Detroit gets very cold in winter. Good to have a lot of scarves." "I know where the mastermind lives." "Who?" she asked. The non sequiturs of small children never ceased to amaze her. "The mastermind from our books." "Oh," she said, "you mean Jack Masterson, the author of our books?" "No, the mastermind. He lives on Clock Island." Lucy wasn't sure how to reply. Christopher was only 7, so she wasn't in any hurry to tell him that the characters he loved in books and movies weren't real. He didn't have a lot to believe in right now, so why not let him think that the mastermind from their Clock Island books was a real guy out there granting real kids wishes. See, this too. I wish we would just let kids be kids for longer. Let them have the magic, let them have the make-believe and the pretend and the imagination, because life will come in at some point and ruin all of that. So let's just let kids be kids. I'm just going to write that here. Let's let kids keep their magic. "How do you know where the mastermind lives?" "My teacher showed me. Want to see?" "Go for it, Magellan." "What?" "Magellan, famous navigator, had a rough time in the Philippines, probably deserved it, but that's beside the point. Show me Clock Island." He hopped up and pointed at the tip-top far right corner of the map. "There," he said, and Lucy was surprised to see he'd gotten it exactly right. His fingertip touched a patch of water right off the coast of Portland, Maine. "Good job," she said. "Is it really Clock Island?" he asked, crunching his face at the map. "Is there a train and unicorns there?" "You mean like in the books?" Lucy asked. "Well, it's pretty amazing there, I hear. Did you know some people think the mastermind and Jack Masterson are the same person?" "But you said you met him." "I did meet Jack Masterson a long time ago. He signed a book for me." Interesting. The hesitation sounds like there's a story there. "He wasn't the mastermind, right?" Damn, he had her there. The mastermind always hid in the shadows that cloaked him in darkness and followed him wherever he went. "No, he didn't look like the mastermind when I met him." See, Christopher was triumphant. Nothing made a kid happier than proving a grown-up wrong. "I stand corrected." Christopher traced a line from Clock Island back to their city, Redwood, California. That's really far. His face was scrunched up tight. Maine was about as far as you could get from California and still be in the same country, which was precisely why she'd moved to California from Maine. Interesting. So there's definitely a story. Sounds like she's from Maine. She met him a while ago and then decided to run away, almost, it seems. I'm not going to add any kind of tags or anything or make any notes because there's just not enough to go off of here, but it's an interesting thing to note. "Pretty far, yeah," she said. "You'd want to fly there." "Can kids go?" Lucy smiled. "To Clock Island?" "They can, but they probably shouldn't without an invitation. The island is private and the mastermind owns all of it, like it's all his house." It would be kind of rude to show up without being invited. Kids do it in books all the time. True, but still, let's wait for an invitation. She gave him a wink. Lucy knew better than anyone about the kids who showed up uninvited on Clock Island. How interesting. Okay, that maybe seems like it's a plot point because it sounds like she herself maybe attempted to do that. Not that she was going to tell Christopher about that, not until he was older anyway. I'm going to actually take one of the plot point tabs and put it there because, again, some foreshadowing going on here. If foreshadowing becomes kind of a common theme, I might be interested in going back and looking at all the parts where we could have foreshadowed a few things as the audience. He dropped his hands from the map and looked at her. Why aren't there any more books? I wish I knew, Lucy said as she went back to wrapping the scarf with tissue paper and twine. When I was your age, they were coming out 4 or 5 times a year, and I read every one of them the day they came out and about 10 times the week after. Lucky, Christopher said wistfully. The Clock Island books weren't very long, 150 pages or less, and there were only 65 of them. Christopher would have read them all in 6 months if she hadn't doled them out to him 1 week at a time. Even so, they'd finished the whole series and started over from book 1 a few weeks ago. How special is that to find a book you love so much that the instant you finish it, you just want to reread it? I think that is one of life's, that's what I'm going to write here, one of life's greatest joys. Especially for me as a book lover, it's just no better feeling than finding a book, or especially a book series with 65 of them that you can just dive into over and over again and the magic just doesn't get lost. I think that's actually really sweet. So I'm going to use the little pink tab here and just remember that bit because that is one of my favorite sentiments, to get lost in a book like that. I've had it happen many times to me, luckily. Don't forget the letter to our customer. Lucy winked at him. Oh, I think I skipped. No, we did finish it there. Okay. Don't forget the letter to our customer. Lucy winked at him. Oh, yeah. How do you spell Carrie? He asked, putting his pencil on the paper. Sound it out, she said. K-A. It's a C, Lucy said. Carrie starts with a C? C is a K sound, he said. But so is C, sometimes, like the C in Christopher. She booped his nose. Christopher glared at her. He disapproved of booping. There's a Carrie in my class, he explained as if Lucy wasn't as bright as she looked. It starts with a K. You can spell names a lot of ways. This Carrie's with a C, 2 R's and an I-E. 2 R's? 2 R's. Why? Christopher asked. Why does it have 2 R's? I don't know, probably being greedy. In his child's hand, Christopher carefully blocked out the word Dear Carrie and made sure to put both R's in the name. Your spelling and handwriting are getting a lot better. He smiled. I've been practicing. I can tell. Lucy included a thank you note for buying a hand-knitted scarf from the Heart and Lamb Knitting Company in every package. Not a real company, just her Etsy store, but Christopher got a big kick out of being co-president. What do I write now? He asked. Something nice, Lucy said. Maybe, thank you for buying a scarf. I hope you like it. I hope it keeps your neck warm, Christopher asked. That's good. Write that down. Even if it's a super girly scarf, don't write that. Christopher laughed and started writing again. Making him smile or laugh was better than winning the lottery, although she'd have a lot more time to make him laugh if she did win the lottery. She glanced over his shoulder as he wrote. His writing was getting really good. Even a few months ago, he was misspelling about every other word he wrote. Now it was just every 4th or 5th word. His reading and math skills were improving too. That hadn't been the case last year when he'd been shuffled between half a dozen foster homes. This year he had a steady living arrangement, great therapies, and Lucy tutoring him every weekday after school. His grades had been stellar ever since. If she could only do something about those bad dreams and his terror of ringing phones. Isn't it amazing when you pour into somebody and you invest in them and you give them love and support, what potential they have to live up to and how well they can do? She knew what he needed, and it was the same thing she wanted for him, a mother. Not a foster mom with 2 sick babies who demanded every minute of the day. He needed a forever mom, and Lucy wanted to be that mom. Aww. What an absolutely sweet sentiment. I mean, clearly she's very attached to this kid and sounds like he deserves a forever mom. Lucy, how much money do you have in your wish fund? He asked while printing his name carefully at the bottom of his letter. $2,200, she said. 2200. Whoa, he stared at her with wide eyes. All scarf money? Almost all of it. Scarf money and any babysitting job she could get. Every day she thought about going back to waitressing, but that would mean never getting to see Christopher, and he needed her more than she needed money. How long did that take to make? 2 years, she said. How much do you need? A little bit more. How much? Lucy hesitated before answering. Maybe 2,000, she said, maybe a little more. Christopher's face fell. The kid was just too good at math. That'll take you another 2 years, he said. I'll be 9 years old. Maybe less, who knows? Christopher dropped his head onto the letter he was writing to Carrie in Detroit. Lucy went over to him, lifted him out of his chair, and held him on her lap. He wrapped his arms around her neck. Squish, she whispered, hugging him tightly. It would be 2 years until she was his mother, the way things were going, at least 2 years. Oh my goodness, so it sounds like she needs that money to pay for the adoption, perhaps? We're going to get there, she said, softly rocking him. One of these days, we're going to get there. You and me. I'm working on it every single day, and when we get there, it'll be you and me forever. And we're going to have your own room with boats painted on the wall. And sharks? Sharks all over the place. Sharks on the pillows, sharks on the blankets, sharks driving the boats, maybe a shark shower curtain, and we'll have pancakes for breakfast every morning, not cold cereal. And waffles? Waffles with butter and syrup and whipped cream and bananas, real bananas, not paper bananas. Sound good? Sounds good. Oh my gosh, how sweet. It sounds like they both need each other, not just him needing her. I'm just going to write, sounds like they both need each other. My handwriting gets a bit funny on this side because I don't have anywhere for my wrist to rest, so just a bit. I'm going to add the little pink note because that's just such a beautiful picture that they've painted of their life together and what it could potentially look like. And it, like I said, it sounds like they would both benefit from this setup and give each other happiness. What else are we going to wish for while we're wishing? This was Lucy and Christopher's favorite game, the wishing game. They wished for money so Lucy could buy a car. They wished for a 2-bedroom apartment where they both had their own rooms. A new Clock Island book, he said. Oh, that's a good one, she said. I'm pretty sure Mr. Masterson is retired, but you never know. Maybe he'll surprise us one of these days. You'll read to me every night when I get to live with you? Every night, she said. You won't even be able to stop me. You can put your hands over your ears and scream, la, 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 can't hear you, Lucy, and I'll keep on reading. That's nuts. I know it, but I'm nuts. What else do you want to wish for, she asked. Does it matter? What, our wishes? Of course they matter. She pulled him back a little so she could meet his eyes. Our wishes do matter. Oh my goodness, I am going to highlight that because, again, in the spirit of, you know, adulting and everything that happens to us along the way, all the baggage we pick up in life, all the things that happen to us, they slowly chip away at that magic. And, you know, we forget to dream. And I love that notion, you know, our wishes do matter. And that's what I'm going to write here, is that we have to remember to keep making wishes. I'm going to use a yellow tab. You know, we can't let that small, innocent, magical part of us die away, and I think wishes are a good way to keep them alive. They never come true, he said. You remember what Mr. Masterson always says in the books? The only wishes ever granted are the wishes of brave children who keep on wishing even when it seems no one's listening, because someone somewhere always is. Christopher finished the quote. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm gonna just highlight that. Honestly, I really wish these books were real because I would definitely read them. That is such a beautiful sentiment. I'm just going to put a heart here. I don't really I think it kind of is self-explanatory, so I think the doodles will be enough. Right, she said, nodding. It amazed her how well he remembered the things he read. He had a little sponge for a brain, which is why she tried to pour so much good stuff into it. Stories and riddles and ships and sharks and love. We just have to be brave enough to keep wishing and not give up. I'm not brave, though. I'm still scared of phones, Lucy. He gave her that look, that terrible, disappointed in himself look. She hated that look. Don't worry about that, she said, rocking him again. You'll get over that soon. And trust me, a lot of grown-ups are scared of their phones when they ring, too. He rested his head against her shoulder again, and she held him close and tight. Go on, she said. One more wish, and then we'll do homework. I wish for it to be cold, Christopher said. You want it to be cold? Why? So you can sell a lot of scarves. Oh, so that she can make money in order to adopt him. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh my goodness, I love the dynamic between these two. She sounds like a really charming female character, one with a lot of heart and one that cares a lot about the kids, and especially Christopher, who she regards as her own and someone that she wants to adopt one day. This is already sounding like a great setup for what is to come. I'm already getting like butterflies in my stomach type of feelings. It sounds like such a charming book that I'm about to read and get into. I am really excited. This just seems so sweet, but also emotional. Seems like it has some depth and also some magical elements. And I can't wait to see how Jack Masterson, the writer, and the stories all intertwine with everything going on with these two. That brings us to the end of our annotation session today. I am really excited about this book, and that was a really long chapter 1, so I'm glad I got to show you a little bit more in depth on some of my different highlights and underlines and give a few explanations as to what I'm reacting to and how it connects to my life. That is what I love about annotating, is that I can get really personal with a story, and it really helps you kind of slow down and savor a book. I've learned to do that a little bit more over the years. There was a time when I would just want to fly through books and just read book after book after book, and I realized that I wasn't connecting as deeply as maybe I wanted to with some stories, because after they finished I was like, oh goodness, I wish I could remember where this part was or that part was, or how I thought about this or that. Especially a series book, if you are starting the second book in the series, it's always nice to go back to an annotated first book in the series and just see your experience of reading that book. So I have really come to love annotations over the years. It's such a fun, enriching, and deep experience reading a book, and helps me get to know the characters and that story a little bit deeper, especially if it turns out to be a book that I really enjoy and end up loving. There have been situations where I didn't love the book, but that's okay too. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it gave you some tips and tricks. As always, I'd love to hear in the comments below what book you're currently reading, what book you hope to annotate, and any other tips or tricks that you have to offer. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will catch you next time.